This is the recording for the session on Zoom breakout rooms, tools for engagement and interaction. And I had forgotten to hit the record button, so I'm going to do an abbreviated version of this talk. And I'm recording it using Screencast-O-Matic rather than Zoom, so that I'm actually able to demonstrate things from both the presenters and also the student's point of view. The disadvantage of this is that it doesn't have the dynamism of that interactive session where we had 50 participants sharing all kinds of good information, but I will try to bring as much of that good information into this recording as I can. So I began the presentation with my resources page, which basically shows the handout for this presentation. So I've got here handout. And you can see that my webpage, it's Petersen, peterseny.faculty.mjc.edu, and then /resources.html. And when I put this handout up, I was hoping that everyone would have it available either printed or on a screen so that they could see what the teacher is doing, because the participants who were in that room could only see from the participant's view. But you, as this outside observer, now can view it from both points of view. So there are a few other resources on Zoom that I've started to collect, and I will continue to add things to this particular section here, so that if you want to check back periodically, you're free to do so. So the very first thing that I wanted to do was to show how to screen share. So I'm first going to stop sharing. Okay, and the very first thing that you will see is this. When you first look at the Zoom screen, you don't necessarily see this taskbar, but if you hover either with your mouse or your cursor, that taskbar will appear, and that great big green button, screen share, will be there. And I'm going to share this time. I'm going to share the whiteboard. So I see this whiteboard here, and there are certain things that I can do. Now, as the host, this bar up at the top automatically appears. I see these options. It says you're screen sharing, but then it's also got the select and text and draw and all that. And whenever students are watching this Zoom session, they do not have those options, but at least not as readily available. However, I will show you how to give the students access to that. So when I look at this bar, this allows me to write on the whiteboard, or if I upload a document such as a Word document, or even if you use OneNote, that's even more flexible, it allows you to write in the space. And so I click text, the T, and I'm going to now touch the screen, and it produces a text box. So I can type text in there. And that is one way that you can communicate visual information to the students. You can also use the draw option. So I have lots of drawing alternatives. I can use the squiggly line or a thicker squiggle. I can also change my colors. So I can, again, draw different kinds of things. I think I will maybe make a circle here that comes in a different color, and you can put down arrows that highlight certain items. The next stamp allows me the option of choosing any of these six different stamp shapes, and so I can put on stars or check marks or X's, and this is especially useful as a math teacher for when I like to have students, for example, make a common graph together. And I guess I forgot to introduce myself. I am Yolande Petersen. I teach in the math department, and this presentation is actually a collaborative effort of about 20 math professors who met through the summer, and we just played around and tried out different tools, in particular Zoom, and I have brought all of the ideas and tools from those various people here. So anyway, but you can have not just the presenter, but also the students contribute these kinds of items. So Spotlight will allow me to, again, use arrows. I can, Spotlight with arrows. I can put arrows to highlight things here. And you see the word Yolande Peterson. This one actually has my name on it. And if you have multiple students, this will allow those students to not only highlight something, but to demonstrate who it was that highlighted that. And then we can use the spotlight here to, again, show you things that I want to accentuate. Eraser will allow me to get rid of that. But if I just want to clear everything, I can clear the whole board, and I've got this trash can clear all drawings, so I'm going to clear everything here and get rid of it. But I think I should put something back because I want to demonstrate later on what's going to happen if I want to save this. So again, we've got some shapes on here, which I will bring back at a later time. So the last thing I want to do is to save this. And so if I hit this save button, it says whiteboard saved. And then the question is, where did that whiteboard save to? Where did that file or document go? And it should be put inside a folder in your documents folder. And so usually it's, for example, it might be my PC or this PC, then documents, and then there's a Zoom folder, and all of these files are stashed away there. If I don't save that, when I go away from this whiteboard, everything will disappear. But if I do save, and if the students save on their own computers, they will have that. So if I've given some lecture notes and I've written all over this board, then the students have access to all of the written stuff that I have, and they can pull it back at a later time. Now, as I mentioned, the students don't have the same access to the tools that we have, the host has. So if they want to draw on the whiteboard, what they need to do is to open up this annotation tool. And so what they will see at the top of the screen is something like this. You are viewing, and in this case, it would be Yolande Peterson's screen. And next to this green bar where it says who is sharing the screen, there is this little black tab that says View Options, and if they click the down arrow, they will get these options. Now, most of the time when people click the down arrow to have view options, they like to change it from gallery view to speaker view, or to maybe make it in side-by-side mode. But one of the very useful tools is this annotate tool. And oops, I'm going to try to circle this. But this annotate option, if you click on it, what will happen is then the students will see all of the same tools that the presenter is going to see as well. So all of those things I showed you, the text box, the drawing squigglies, the stamping and all that, that will then become accessible to the students. And they also will have access to that save tool. So if they save their documents either in the big room, the main classroom, or in the small breakout rooms, those whiteboards or documents will be saved. So one of the things that I should note is that in order to make the magic happen, you will sometimes set up a Zoom session, and then it'll seem like, well, why is it that this Zoom session that I set up, I am not able to get the students to annotate? And it's probably because you did not set the permissions. So before you actually launch the session, when you're in the setting up process, you can change these settings. So you go to Settings, in Meeting Basic, and then what you have to do is slide this screen sharing button to enable it, and then you will select all participants, meaning all the students in the class will be allowed to then annotate on your screen. And then I have all of this, so the students can share, the students can also annotate. And when you enable that and students find that they have the power to put stamps all over the screen, that really excites them. It's just a really kind of a cool feature. So one thing I do have to warn you about, though, is that whenever you have some ability, you can be sure that some student is going to abuse it. So one thing that we have to do is point you out to the security feature, which is going to allow you to stop all of that annotating and sharing if you don't want it. So going back to the main toolbar, on the far left is the security button, and I have allowed my students to share their screen, chat, rename themselves, and unmute themselves. So if I don't want them to do any of these things, then what I should do is just uncheck those, and immediately then they won't be able to perform those functions. But as far as annotating, so I have a screen, and even though they're not sharing on top of me, if I had permitted them to annotate, I'm going to have to stop permitting that annotation. And so to stop this, we have another feature. And so that goes on the top bar. So when you've got, or excuse me, it is again on the bottom bar still, but we have this more button, and so I had cut that off on the other side. But if you click the more button, it will show you some other options, and one of the other options is disable annotation. So those are things that you can do to stop the students from intruding unnecessarily. Okay, so before I actually show you how to send people into breakout rooms, I wanted to answer a few questions that had been asked. So one of them was, I'm not seeing any of these menus as a participant. How do I make them appear? And just a reminder, the way to make them appear is to hover your cursor. So basically, just move the mouse or the pen around, and those bars should appear both on the top and the bottom. Now, one question that had arisen was regarding Chromebooks. And so people with Chromebooks were having a hard time getting into the breakout rooms. And what one of the participants had shared was that Chromebooks behave similarly to phones. They're mobile devices, and therefore they have certain limitations on them, and Chromebooks and phones cannot be, people using those cannot be sent into breakout rooms. And I just went to a meeting and verified with some of my colleagues that that is actually not true, that people with phones and Chromebooks can get into breakout rooms. But the when you are sent an invitation and it appears on the screen, enter this breakout room, it's much more difficult to see that invitation, and you have to actually do a little bit of, button pushing. And so my colleagues have promised me that they will send me some screenshots of which buttons and where to be pushed. But this had been an equity issue, because if there are students, again, who are using Chromebooks that were issued by the school, this would not permit them to participate fully. And it had been considered, well, if they just stay in the main room, that will be their small group. And that was a kind of workaround, but I think that now that I've got this information that students can be put in breakout rooms just as everybody using other devices, that we might as well take advantage of that functionality. So when I want to create the breakout rooms, I will use on the main taskbar this option here that just has the 4 squares. And then what will happen is I'll get a screen that looks like this. And right now it tells me to assign 0 participants because I'm the only one that's here. But if I had 50 students in the room, then I would see assign 50 participants into, and then I can select how many rooms. And if I do it automatically, I can just click the button, create rooms, and then everybody will randomly go into a room. If I ask for it to be done manually, then I will have to assign them one by one. And so what will happen then is then the students, it says just breakout room 1 because there are no participants. But if I had, say, 6 rooms, then it would say breakout room 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6 with the names of the students then put in those rooms. And this assign button here, each student, if you hover or click on their name, you can reassign them to a different room. So if I, wanted to put a student in another room, either because it seemed that some of the rooms are too small, sometimes again what happens is those students who don't have easy to use devices, they get assigned either to a lone room or something strange will happen. So I might have to do a little bit of, rearranging of the students. And then again, once I assign them, the students will have a radio button that says join breakout room number, say 4, and they'll hit that button and then they'll go into the room. And when I send students in the room, I tell them very explicitly, please pay attention to the number of the breakout room that you're assigned to, because if you lose Wi-Fi connection and you get kicked out and come back, you won't automatically go back into that room, but if you wanted to join your group, you'll go into the main room, and I would be in the main room, and I would be able to then assign you to the room that you had been in. So there is some advantage to knowing which room you came from. So when the students go into the room, then there are not very many ways for them to, quote, get out. So if they try to use the chat, they will be able to communicate with the other members of their room, but not members in other rooms. There are a few things that they can do inside that room to summon me. So one is there's a button that says ask for help, and then that will go to me, and I will get a message that, you know, someone in room number 3 wants help, and then I'll go visit that room. You can either allow students to return to the main room, so that's one of the settings or permissions, but you can also prevent them, that they cannot go back to the main room unless you have ended the breakout room session. So when you assign them to rooms, you can, there's an option to say how much warning you want to give. You can, the default is 60 seconds, but you can make it 120 seconds or longer so they know how much time they have left. One of the issues that had come up was in the breakout rooms, there was some interference, and so one room was able to overhear what was happening in another room, and it was very distracting. I had asked my colleagues about it, and they told me that that happens when one person signs in on 2 devices. For example, they sign in on a laptop, and they also sign in on their phone. And so, simple solution, ask the student to, or maybe prevent them from signing in on 2 different devices, or have them shut down one of their devices before they go into the breakout room. But that is the solution to that particular problem. So now that I'm back in the main Zoom room, I will come back here and my students will be back in the room with me. And it says, so I'm sharing my screen because I want to show you how you can retrieve those shared screens. And this applies not only to you, but it also applies to the students. So while they were in their breakout rooms, they can save those screens to their documents folder. So I'm in this PC, and I've got documents here, and I've got quite a few. You could see in the Zoom room, so I've got quite a few saved files from different Zoom events. So I'm going to go down to my most recent folder, which is this Zoom breakout. So this is what I produced today, and it says Whiteboard 1. And when I click on it, it's showing me the contents of that whiteboard. So that's what I had saved a few minutes ago. And other students in the classroom can share their screen. So again, if you had some small group work and you asked them to summarize their results and bring it back to the classroom, they would be able to do that. So one suggestion that one of my colleagues had given was that if you have a group, say, of 4, that you give a very specific role to each one. Make sure that you have someone who is perhaps designated as the screen sharer, someone who is going to be the scribe who writes down the notes, someone who is the screen saver, someone who makes sure that document gets saved, and someone who is the verbal presenter. So when their classmate puts that screen up in the main room for all to see, then you have someone who will narrate the summary of that group's findings. One question that came up is, can several students or several subgroups share simultaneously? So again, you have, say, 6 breakout groups. Can all 6 be sharing on the screen at the same time? And at this moment, our conclusion seems to be no, or at least we don't know a way to do it. But one of the participants in today's session had shared how to put collaborative work in a Google Doc that can be shared with everyone. And so I'm trying to move this this window up so that you can see the URL, but anyway, it's tinyurl.com/y4avvese. And I'm going to pull up that web page. And so this is a template for using Google Docs to simultaneously look at breakout rooms. And there's some explanation in there that I can just let you look at your leisure. But that is one option, is to use a shared document for collecting all of the work of the groups. The last question that I wanted to answer was what technology I used for writing. So this person had used a Wacom tablet, and I also have used that, and I found that there have been certain challenges. So basically, when you write on the Wacom tablet, you don't actually see what's on the screen. You write on an opaque tablet, and then you have to be viewing your screen in another location. And I find that eye-hand coordination is really difficult. So right now what I'm using is a Surface Pro 7, and I found it to be pretty satisfactory. So it's got glass, then I'm writing on the glass, but the document is right underneath. So what I've done is I pulled up a Word document, and this is a handout that I give the students, and it's a set of guided notes where they have some definitions or examples written, but then I expect them to fill in the blanks with their own handwritten work, and I do the handwritten work that I'm expecting them to copy. So I have this problem here. It says solve the system, and then I've got these two equations, and I'm going to do the steps that it says. So it says isolate one variable in one equation, so I'm going to isolate this x and say this is equal to 1, and I'll move the or add the 4y to the other side, so I get plus 4y. And then the second step says substitute that variable into the other equation. So I've got this x, and wherever I see the x, I'm going to substitute in 1 plus 4y. But then I've got the rest of the equation, so I've got the plus 2y is equal to 7, and you can see how this is going to go. But I am able to write relatively small, at least small enough that I am able to get a problem on that whiteboard space without having to scroll or use too much other space. I can also draw graphs, so I'm going to put a graph here, and I can use different colors. So I'm going to pull up the annotate bar again. Format, I can pick a different color, and I can draw a line here and maybe have more colors with intersecting lines, but you get the idea. So there are a lot of different options that I can use, again, with the zoom annotation. One thing that also helps me when I'm doing the writing is that if I wear a glove, my hand moves more smoothly across the glass. My hands often get sweaty when I'm giving a presentation, and they're going to get stuck, and that causes the writing to be irregular and unpleasant for the students to look at. So if I've got the glove, I don't have that problem. I do the El Cheapo way. I just take a sock and I poke 3 holes in it for my first 3 fingers so that I can hold the digital pen. But if you would like to get something more formal, Amazon does have these writing gloves for sale, but I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but I'm sure that if you put something like glove for technology or for digital pen, you could probably find something of that sort. So this pretty much concludes all the information that I had given in that presentation. I have actually added in a few things, again, with the help from my friends, and I'm going to continue to put more resources regarding Zoom up on my website. So thanks for listening.